In a world marked by complexity and by uncertainty, what's needed is a voice of clarity. And Captain Raghu Raman is certainly one such voice. Whether it's leading the troops in Siachen or whether it's counseling corporate and government advisories, it's all about being adaptive. So come with me on this episode of Baat Bharat Ki as we apply the many strategic lessons that he has to talk about and we understand how to create a mind shift in how we go from here to there. Hello and welcome to another episode of Baat Bharat Ki. With me today is the very distinguished Captain Raghu Raman. Sir, thank you for being here with us on this
Thanks,
episode.
John. Thank you for this opportunity.
So, Captain Raman, in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack, what are your key tactical and strategic takeaways from all of that, and what are the lessons that can be applied from that to our counterterrorism, our growth strategy for the entire subcontinental region?
Well, in the aftermath of the Pahalgam attacks, you have had many other things that have happened. And one of the takeaways ought to be that this conflict escalation has a precedence before in 2019, which has a precedence before in 2016, which has a precedence before in the parliament attack mobilization, which has a precedence before in Kargil. So if it is military punitive strikes that could have caused a deterrence, then the shelf life of that deterrence seems to be not more than 3 to 4 to 5 years. So very clearly that is not a long-term deterrence. That's point number one. Point number two, you also notice that not only is the space between these attacks reducing, major attack, minor attacks keep happening, but major attacks, the frequency between them is reducing. Also, the punitive strike back brisance level is increasing. First time it was one strike, this time it's to and fro and missiles and drones. And first time it was in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, this time it's in mainland for both the nations. Yes. So if you combine these two elements together, one is the reduction of time between the terror events,
right,
and the brisance level required in the punitive strike each time, you know that this is a zero-sum game. This can't continue because if you have one more strike, what do we do now, right? Eventually, I think the question is, I believe the question is not framed correctly, because if you are looking for tactical lessons, then you will have only tactical answers. Right. So you say, okay, instead of going at night time, we should go at dawn. Instead of hitting this place, we should hit that place. Right. These are tactical lessons. But I think strategically, if two nations have to coexist, because geography you can't wish away. You can't say, I wish Pakistan was in some other place. You can't wish it away. And you can't also wish away, contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, that if you cut Pakistan into 4 pieces, then it will resolve the problem. It won't, because each one of those pieces will get into conflict, and guess where those refugees will end up. When East Pakistan was being punished by West Pakistan, where did those refugees come? Yeah. So this belief that by creating trouble in your neighbor's country or neighborhood, somehow your house will be, it's almost like saying that if I create trouble in my neighbor's house, उसके बच्चों को मैं शराबी बना देता हूँ, उसके बच्चों को मैं चाकू चलाना सिखा देता हूँ ताकि वो आपस में एक दूसरे को काटें. चाकू जब सीख लेगा चलाना और दारू भी पी लेगा, then he is not going to bother too much कि मैं किसको मार रहा हूँ, right? So eventually, if the two nations have to look at your future, when you will have children who are growing up, you can't be at it again like we have been at it for 70 years.
Right, sir.
The only answer is that you have to have an economic interdependence.
Right.
And look at the opportunity there. We are 6, 7, 8, 10 times their economy and growing. And Pakistan, if it is made, I'm not saying it's made to realize, but if Pakistan is made to appreciate that if you look east policy and follow the example of India and climb on to the Indian economic bandwagon, then your growth will be on the growth of an Indian subcontinent growth, which is 3, 4, 5%, 6%, going to become one of the largest economies of the world.
True.
And India has the ability to pull a nation like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka in its slipstream as it is going up.
Right.
If Pakistan, on the other hand, chooses to look west, then the example is Afghanistan, Iran. Those are the examples to the west. Very, very tribal, fractured, not allowing coalescing, not allowing the national capacity to come together. That's a very Afghanistan and a northwest, now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa,
Right.
all those regions. That's the format. So India has no option but to look at a stable Pakistan. Contrary to the belief that if we fragment Pakistan, we'll be better off. We won't actually be. We'll be in much bigger trouble because you won't then be able to talk to one leader. As it is in Pakistan, we have a challenge today that we have to talk to two entities. One entity we have to talk to is the civilian, well, actually three entities. Civilian elected government, which is not very, in terms of power parity, it is subjugated to the military.
Yes.
The second, you have to talk to the military, not just us, the whole world talks to them. Whenever a nation, state head, sovereign head comes to Pakistan, he actually calls on the GHQ,
Right.
not on the Prime Minister or the President, he calls on the Army Chief. So that's the second entity we have to talk to. And the third entity we have to talk to is the Pakistani people. But Pakistani people are themselves fractured. You have a Punjab which dominates the rest and is a hegemon on parts like Baluchistan or Sindh or Khyber. So we are talking to several different entities. And of course, any Indian politician or Indian statesman has to also address internal sort of demographies.
Yeah.
So you have to have multiple conversations. You have to have a conversation for the show, and you have to have a conversation which is happening in the back channel. But eventually, if we have to resolve this issue, we have to get into each other's economic juggler, so that there is so much of codependence economically that every rupee that is being spent towards developing each other's nation in a symbiotic relationship, rather than buying arms from America and Russia, developing their economies,
Right.
and firstly losing the opportunity cost, because every one aircraft that you buy is about 5 hospitals that you cannot put up. Every aircraft carrier you create is an entire 5 smart cities that you could have done.
Yeah.
And hundreds of thousands of children you could have educated, millions of children whom you could have given basic nutritional supplements and all of that, because that exchequer's budget is the same. It's the same. If you thought of the Indian budget as 100 rupee, from the same 100 rupees you have to take out defense, paramilitary, security, DRDO, ISRO, education, policing, healthcare, R&D, development, everything has to come out from this. Green, carbon footprint, all of it has to come out from this 100. Every time you take away money towards security, it is coming out from some pool.
That same pool.
Something else has been removed. Women's security is being compromised, children's safety is being compromised, malnutrition is being compromised, Manrega is being compromised. Because after all, this money has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Right? And security expenditure, both for India and Pakistan, or for that matter China, is a wasteful expenditure. Because you're not producing anything. It's not by, if I buy 10 tanks, they don't, copulate and produce 5 more. Those 10 tanks are a dead cost for me, and they continue to, sort of drain the nation. So there is no debate that every country needs a strong army and every army needs a strong set of equipment and all of that. But I think it's the job of nation and statesmen to reduce the need for an army by killing the enmity and not trying to kill the enemy. Because after all, an enemy has a reason for enmity. And if that reason for enmity is addressed, only then you have a real solution to it. But if constantly the accusation is those people are idiots, those people are fools, and that's why they're doing it, then there's no end to it. Because you're kind of labeled your adversary as an irrational man. So how do you deal with an irrational man? You cannot deal with an irrational man.
Right.
Because technically speaking, an irrational man cannot even be deterred by fear.
Yeah.
Because he's irrational. You are a rational man, so I say, look, I'll put you in jail if you commit a crime. If you commit a serious crime, I'll put you in put you in life imprisonment. And if you murder someone, I'll hang you. How do you tell that to a suicide bomber? He is irrational.
They're zealous.
So many of the rules with which you think you will be able to operate the ecosystem's levers, they are not connected to the other side. So you may be turning the lever here thinking, I'm turning, half a squadron I have sent one more attack. The other adversary is not affected by that at all. So I think if we have to get eventual solutioning, it cannot be just dealing with the Pakistani military or the Pakistani politician. It has to be dealing with one of the arguably largest, youngest populations in the country, in the world, which is the Pakistani next generation and the Indian next generation. They have a choice. Either they inherit the sins of the fathers, which become sins of the son. I mean, there is obviously a lot of trauma in the two nations in the form of a partition, in the form of our early wars, in the form of 1971. But I'm not so sure that today a 15-year-old kid in India, Pakistan, or for that matter, China, is looking at the partition. He is looking actually at the future. And what does he see in the future? 14 of the most polluted cities are in the subcontinent. Joblessness in the rising difference between the rich and the poor. Increasingly, universities that are churning out students who are not employable.
Right.
Job opportunities are reducing. All these lines that I said, they're equally applicable for both sides of the LOC. We are facing a lot of common problems. Matter of fact, I don't know how many, I haven't seen it being registered so far, I think. But do you realize this is the first instance in recorded modern history that I remember where water war has made a beginning?
Yeah.
We keep talking about water wars hone wala hai, water wars hone wala hai. This is the first time when water war has been acknowledged. And a nation has chosen to at least challenge a treaty, which till now in the world, wars and conflicts and all was considered कि यार पानी छाने के बारे में बात नहीं करेंगे, because this is above everything else.
Yeah.
It has been referred to for the first time. So forget about Indo-Pak, what happened just now, but if someday, 50 years from now, when the future generation will talk about wars that were waged for water, they will say the first time it began was in this incident between India and Pakistan. That's where it came up. So the current generations are seeing some of the major catastrophic reasons for which wars will be fought, the beginning of that happening.
Yeah.
Now, either they can use that as the canary in the mines, you know that metaphor, you use a bird in the mines to make sure that aage ka wo gas, and when the canary starts fluttering, people know that what you're looking at now is catastrophe. So either we use this incident that has happened between India and Pakistan, water wars coming, two nuclear nations within 72 hours escalating to a point, right? In this day and age of miscommunication, malinformation.
Right.
Let's say at the same time there had been another terror attack which had no connection with this. Let's say a terror attack by a different outfit in different part of India, and 2 plus 2, someone added it to 22. Imagine how. So I think we have to remember that a large majority of the population of India are going to be living in this subcontinent for several decades longer than the decision makers of this subcontinent. And most decision makers, whether they are in a form of a democratic government or a military rule or one-party system, any form. Let's take the greatest, now the largest, one of the largest democracies, you take the United States. The rulers of any such political establishment have to look at the short term.
Right.
Because that's what keeps them in power.
Correct.
They cannot worry about a pollution or a tsunami or a tectonic shift or a water or a glacier drying up 20 years down the line, because they aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
Their more concern is, I'm going to be my next election, assembly election, Vidhan Sabha election, they are concerned about that. And that's the reality. I mean, it's not that they are bad people, that's the way the system is structured. So if we have to look, if you have to look, and your children have to look at a longish term, we have to start questioning beyond this jingoism कि उसका कितना जहाज गिराया, मेरा 2 गिरा, उसका 4 गिरा, मेरे 200 मरे तो उसके 500 मरे. This is not going to solve the problem. The bigger issues are getting sidelined with this distractive things which keep coming and going, and the bigger issues are, I mean, water is going to be a major issue.
It will.
There are, and by the way, India will reach there, but Pakistan is going to reach there much before us. In Pakistan, there is already a water scarcity problem. Yeah. In cities like Quetta, water is being ferried in tankers all the way from Iran. Water is coming from long distance, 140 kilometers, 150 kilometers, drinking water is being brought in. That's the situation today. So when a nation will not have water, you think they'll just lay down and die? You think if your neighbors will not have water and they will go to starvation or water scarcity level, they'll just sit there and wait while you are in your swimming pool, swimming and taking a shower. You think that'll happen?
Absolutely not.
So I think this region has a lot of common problems, and many of our problems, whether it's water, whether it's pollution, it doesn't follow the LOC. कि मैं गैस पोल्यूशन यहाँ तक आकर रुक जाऊंगा इंडिया का एंड पाकिस्तान नहीं जाऊंगा, और पाकिस्तान पोल्यूशन विल नॉट कम हियर. Water table, the underlying water table that is there, we share the water tables, we share many things. So I think unless and until we take that macro big picture view, that are we trying to solve for the next elections or are we trying to solve for the next 20 years, our setup solutions will be very different, and so will our investments. If you're trying to solve for the next short term, then we should buy more aircrafts, more tanks, more aircraft carriers and more missiles. If we are trying to solve for the next 20 years, we should be putting up more schools, focusing on nutrition of the kids, getting more intelligent people rather than jingoistic people who can't see. I mean, we often accuse another country of producing mass-produced people who have no visibility of modern science, anthropology, innovation. They are just focusing on only one dogmatic teaching, that this teaching is the only teaching. We accuse them, right?
Yep, we do.
Maybe we should introspect and ask ourselves, that is our junior school level system providing that kind of education that we'll be able to produce our own scientists and our own cryptographers, our own mathematicians, will be able to design chips, will be able to make mobile phones, will be able to make next generation circuitry, which will, take us into the next level of AI. Are we doing that? Is the question we have to ask, right?
It's a very valid point.
So, simply put, if you're looking for a long-term solution, your vision has to be cast in a much longer-term horizon, and therefore your investments for the longer-term horizon will be very, very different from a short-term horizon, because in a short-term horizon you can achieve a lot. An easy way to understand is that how do you, if you were asked a question, how do you improve a nation's health? Right? This one line.
Yeah.
The correct answer to this is, it is a group of things. It's a combination of things you have to do.
Absolutely.
Because they range from providing better nutrition to an expectant mother, to hygiene, to childbirth, to good hospitals, to education, to physical hygiene, clean water, unadulterated food, unadulterated, no spurious medicines.
Yeah.
It is this whole gamut.
Yes.
But that is huge. That's overwhelming.
It is.
So instead of that, let's just make more clinics, more toilets. Because here I can now say, okay, I've opened 25 clinics, I've announced 25 aims, I've done 20 hospitals in this district. It looks very tangible and it is reportable in my report card.
Yeah.
Will it move the needle? The answer is no. It won't move the needle. It'll yes, provide succor to some people who, instead of coming from Jammu all the way to Delhi aims, and now lie down in front of Jammu aims. Eventually they'll do that, because undercapacities are classic bane. So instead of coming and lying in the footpath in Delhi, they lie in the footpath in Jammu. But will it make the nation healthier? It won't, because for that healthier nation, you have to go right at the grassroots and say कि वो बच्चे का mother का nutrition देखना है मेरे को, ताकि वो बच्चा जब पैदा होगा, he'll have the antibodies and all of that stuff and won't be a sickly child.
Everything from the grassroots.
It has to start from there. But that requires the entire nation, like when you are erecting a big tent, very big tent, the entire nation has to stand, hold the tent, and the count of 1, 2, 3, everyone has to lift it together, which requires getting consensus, which requires building alliances, which requires meeting other people halfway, which requires taking the smaller groups whose interests may be on a separate side, selling them a bigger dream and a bigger vision, and getting them together.
Yeah.
Which takes a lot more effort and a lot more, I think, statesmanship skills. Whereas acquiring power can be done in a shorter route. Power can be acquired very easily and very fast by just creating infighting and taking one group and coalescing around that group. So if the quest is for short-term power, you have one set of strategies. If the quest is for long-term power, long-term dominance, the way China did it, when China focused on its educational institutes, its children's nutrition, its infrastructure, its structures, but most importantly, education. China has, I think, 10 universities in the top 50 odd universities in the world.
They do.
India doesn't come till 100. Usme bhi ek do aayega, IIT Mumbai or something like that.
Yeah.
That delta should show you that there is a nation which is investing in its people and another nation where R&D budgets are reducing, education budgets are reducing, nutrition budgets are reducing. So if you're not investing in your next generation, how are you going to create a strong nation? There is a belief, a lot of people have this belief, because a very nice sentence to quote, sounds very much macho sentence, I think it's attributed to Mao, that power flows through the barrel of a gun. That's not true. Power actually flows through economy, which enables you to buy a gun through whose barrel power flows.
Right.
So I think if our nation focuses on the economy, then we will come out winning on this. If instead we start playing Pakistan's game, which is that we'll hit you, you'll hit us back, and then we'll hit you some more and you'll hit us back more, we actually are walking into a trap that Pakistan and China both have laid for us, and we'll actually play into their hands.
Very well put, sir. So I buy your point about trying to create a strategic, holistic solution that's economic, that's social, everything put together. Interestingly, when I was reading up on you, I saw that you yourself have helped to raise and lead an organization that draws from the best of the armed forces and the corporate world and create this kind of collaborative culture, fostering all of that. Are there any parallels you can draw from that with the situation that you just explained, where we need to get all of these factors to coalesce and pull together?
So, firstly, I don't think I'm naive, or any of the listeners is naive enough to think that we can just get a group of people together and give them a noble mission and they'll all start. NGO के अंदर भी infighting होता है कि नहीं?
Yeah.
In the noblest of entities, causes, there उसको बड़ा कुर्सी मिला, मेरे को छोटा मिला, वो बॉस के साथ बैठा है, उसका कुर्सी 2 row पीछे है. This is human nature.
Yes.
And there is an anthropological reason for this nature. Please remember that any group of living creatures that lives together in a community and works together in a society, whether it's a group of ants, a group of mammals, a group of elephants, or a group of human beings, they are in a paradox. This paradox, I call it the bubble paradox.
Okay.
So when you blow a bubble, remember the soap bubbles? You blow it.
Absolutely.
The surface layer, the tension of that bubble should be light enough for it to be allowed to be expanded when you blow.
Yeah.
But should be strong enough to still hold, because if it breaks, the bubble bursts, right?
Yeah.
So when any society is growing, any population is growing, any nation is growing, it needs to have a singular purpose which is large enough to hold it together, but at the same time it will also have a lot of internal conflicts, otherwise it will not compete and grow. Right? So these are two contrarian, sort of elements that will work together, which means when you put a group of people together, while they will pay attention to the overall success of the project and all of that, they will not be able to shed their reptilian, equation between which is urge, which is to preserve myself. Is my name coming out better? Do I get credit for it? What is my status management within this group? Is group mein mera number kahan padta hai? This thing will not go away. They will not suddenly become very altruistic, noble people. Right. They will not do that, right? This is genetically hardwired into us.
It is.
I mean, there's a lot of material on it. If you were interested, it will genetically show you that you as a father will, in terms of love and sacrifice, will probably do a 9 on 10 for your own child, right? 9 on 10, not 10 on 10. 10 on 10, why? Because you have to survive.
Yeah.
So if a choice comes between you and your own child, rule of life says that evolution is better served if you save yourself, and then if you have bandwidth, you will save your child. Which is why even in that airline they tell you, पहले अपना mask लगाओ,
and then
फिर बच्चे का लगाओ. Because if you try to put the mask on the child and you have 3 children, and if you fail during that time, all 4 will die, right? So save yourself first, and then if you have got bandwidth, you save you save your closest. Now this child is your offspring, carries your genes, carries your DNA, and that's why a reptilian brain tells you that I have to preserve its life. But there's a very famous saying which says that I'll give my life for my child or 8 first cousins.
Okay. Because
with your first cousin, this bond now becomes diluted. I'll give this example to you in a different way. Let's say you are rushing out of a catastrophe, and you have a choice to take your daughter and her first cousin and a friend of hers. you're more likely to take your daughter and the first cousin because there is a blood relation.
Yes.
Right? But what if this child, her Saheli, is actually the daughter of a friend of yours who was with you for years, who died in an accident, and now the poor girl is an orphan? Now suddenly
that
different
changes the dynamics.
This script is not a blood script. This is not a genetic script. This is a laid-in script. It's a script that has been added to you.
Yeah.
So all societies are managed with these two tensions. A script that is added to you in your head. We are part of India. We are Vishwaguru. We are going to become this. We are the IPL. We'll win. This is a narrative. And then there is a blood narrative that we belong to the same clan. We are the same this thing. We look alike. We speak the same language. We have millions of years or thousands of years of cultures behind us. These two are always at a conflict. So if you are able to create an environment where people are able to focus on a common goal and set aside the importance of this internal conflict, set aside the importance. Please remember, I'm not saying forget the internal conflict, but set aside the priority of that internal conflict to deal with an external one, then I think we can create those teams which actually are a sum of their parts much, much stronger, exponentially stronger than the individual parts.
Right.
So in my experience, it is possible to do it. It's difficult. It's not easy. It requires the right kind of people in the team. It requires oftentimes a sense of urgency or a sense of purpose, which is huge. Right. I mean, I often give this example. You will find parents of special needs children will have a very low rate of divorce.
Because the child bonds them.
Because there is a common purpose.
Yes.
There is a mission which is larger than you came late, or you did this, or you didn't give me a flower on my anniversary, or you forgot my anniversary. There's a much, much larger problem here. Right. So if there is a sufficiently large problem, which I think India has, many large problems. We have problems of food security, not food, but water security. Definitely we have problems. We will have problems of food security also. If water security is not there, food security will also. We have problems of energy. We have problems of pollution. We have problems of a huge disparity between the haves and the have-nots, which is not going to continue forever. I think a lot of people live in gated colonies and gated la-la lands, thinking that this state will continue forever, that Zomato guys will come and watch our opulence and go away without doing anything again and again and again and again. It's not going to happen. Crime rates are increasing. Angst is pent up.
Yeah.
There is just lots of young energy out there which is not being channelized constructively. If you remember the movie Matrix, they used to plug something in the back of the head. It's now plugged in front of the face, right? And with that device, it's very, very easy to turn masses of people into berserk mobs in a matter of seconds. So it's not like we don't have enough problems to solve, the bigger ones. So I've always believed if you have a big enough problem to solve, that can be articulated to every individual in terms of what is the implication of not solving this problem to them personally and to their future generations. And there is a leader who is able to work the alliances, who is able to meet people more than halfway, who's able to, sort of construct that consensus, who's able to build the consensus. You can get a lot of opposing energy to work together in the same direction. It can be done.
And so your own experience is very, multifaceted. You've served and you've led across the armed forces, the government, on the corporate side of things. Maybe you can perhaps shed some insight on the kind of mindset shift needed for leaders to then lead in this kind of, changing, challenging landscape and milieu.
I think the first principles of leadership in a rapidly changing environment is common across domains. Firstly, I genuinely believe leadership is required in a rapidly changing environment more. Right? If the environment is not changing, आपने साल का पेड़ लगा दिया है और 25 साल के बाद वो पेड़ बन जाएगा, आप काट लो, 25 साल तक अपने आप बारिश आ रही है, पेड़ उग रहा है, you really don't require much of leadership there,
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
an SOP. If you put certain amount of manure, do certain amount of pruning, it'll happen. Leadership comes when suddenly there is a major cyclone and your entire crops that you have laid have
Yeah.
gone for a six, and now your
Yeah.
community is going to be on famine, and you have to go to the world and get wheat from somewhere and beg from the US that please feed us during the famines of the 60s or whatever, and then decide, buddy, hell, I'm not going to allow it to happen the second time, and I'll do a green revolution. That's where leadership is required. So leadership by definition is required when times are volatile and resilient and roller coaster.
Yeah.
So I think the question should be framed well. I framed that in my head. I'm framing it that what are the elements of leadership, because leadership by definition means the ability to operate in a ambiguous environment, which famously in the corporate world, corporate stole it from the armed forces, the VUCA, environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I think the first 4-5 things. First is, I do believe leaders must have, I'm using the words very carefully, must have a certain amount of disdain for existing rules and regulations. And I don't mean disdain in a negative way, and I don't mean disdain about sexual harassment, those kind of rules. I'm not talking about that. But certain aspects that we have been told that things have to happen in this way only, or things have to happen, this is the way it is done, or it's always happened this way. There must be a healthy
disregard, if you would.
Disregard is a better word, actually. Healthy disregard for it. Let me try and see something like this. And secondly, there should be a belief in the lead. I actually find, this might be, it's not so much of a dichotomy, it's been proven in research that people who have done exceedingly well in education, consistently, which means they've always topped their school, always got a gold medal, they don't do very well as leaders.
Because they operate within rigid confines.
No, because they have too clean a track record to protect.
Okay.
So they cannot fail. Gold medal, isme to fail ho gaya hai. So they cannot choose something that they're not absolutely certain of winning the gold medal in, which by definition means that they have to operate in their comfort zone.
Correct.
Because anything that they're not certain of is out of the comfort zone. So they like to operate in absolute certainty because they have a certain track record to protect.
Yeah.
Whereas people who have been generally dabbling in a lot of different skills, dabbling in I've found people who are working well in an organization but also like to read books, also like to participate in plays and play sports, are a member of one or two NGO kind of groups, are doing something else on the side like trekking or go to temples to study its architecture, have hobbies. Multifaceted people, they usually get their strength and mojo from more than one validation. They just don't need the certificate में सब AA होना चाहिए. So they get their validation from multiple different sources, and therefore they are not wedded to one script of success or failure. And therefore such individuals, I believe, are able to take more chances. They're able to, because see, every day when I go to sleep, I'm making it in a sort of trivial way. Maybe you can take a day, or you can take a week, or a year, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I grade myself. That how did I do? Did I do well? If you produce a show and that gets like 5 million views, then it's a validation for that show. That's an amazing story that I did, right? Now, if your validation becomes only one metric of life, how many million views I got, in that metric, there will be days when you will fail.
Yes.
But if your metric is how good a son I am, how good a father I am, how good everybody picked up this tennis, or the pickleball, something I picked up now, and how good will I be in this? Or I've set a goal that half marathon bhagne ka hai, or I'll educate 2 children, or I'll spend 1 hour every day visiting that old couple who's living in my colony, but nobody seems to give a shit about them. I'll do that. Now you have set a different set of benchmarks for yourself, right? So I think resilient leaders become resilient by design. It is not some, exercise they do of stretching every day and touching their toes to become resilient. No, I think they create an environment or a structure of metrics around them. You might have a really bad day, but if you got a dog at home who is really happy when he sees you, that is a form of resilience. You have added a positive reaffirmation to your life by designing it into your life.
Yes.
Right? I do this completely by chance. It's not something that I thought about it and all that, but when I started doing it, I realized the power of it. So I like to go for a walk or a run in the morning, right?
Okay.
Now, typically, I can do it two ways. One way I can do it is inside a gym where I can walk on the treadmill or run on the treadmill. I can put on a headphone, listen to an audiobook, maybe even watch the TV and get myself educated on what's happening in the world today. The other is the way I started doing, which is walking on the footpath. So when you walk on that footpath and see a family of a father, mother, and two tiny children, both the children naked, and flies on top of the child's face, and the mother not even bothering moving the flies because she knows if I move it within seconds they'll come again, and the child is sleeping with the flies crawling inside its mouth and all of that, I don't think you'll worry too much about AC theek nahi chal raha, ye nahi chal raha. So I think leaders should marinate themselves in realities of the troops they lead. And if they see, I genuinely believe you don't need to listen to a motivational speaker to get motivated. If you just go to office and realize कि मेरे आने से 1 घंटे पहले हाउसकीपिंग वाला आया है और मेरे जाने से 1 घंटे के बाद वो जाएगा वापस, and he gets probably about 10,000 rupees, actually gets about 6,000-7,000 rupees, sign करवाते हैं 10,000 पे उसमें, right? And if he is doing it with a smile on his face or whatever, I don't think leaders can have an excuse for. Of course, they'll still have bad days. No doubt about it. Human beings, everyone is a human being. Even the most successful Olympic gold medalist will have really bad. Some of the most successful people in the world commit suicide, right? So, external validation, the external successes and all are one parameter. I think the best way to create resilience is to create a mosaic of validations which may not have anything to do with material success. Which could be, two kids rooting for you because you paid for their education or gave them tuition. One old couple that look forwards to your coming because nobody else comes to them. That is also a good ACR rating, वो भी 10 pointer है. It's not just कि मेरा boss, वैसे भी boss कद्दू होते हैं 90%. I've been one, so I know that. So what's the point of trying to get validation from one man or one woman who sees you for maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes in 8 hours of your life and gives a validation on you or a proclamation on you that you are smart, not smart, you have fire in the belly, don't have fire in the belly? Doesn't make sense. So I think resilience actually lies by us creating our own safety net. And the safety net consists of a mosaic of validations which come through a whole set of activities that we do. And some of those validation could be you yourself, If you decide, hey, Guns N' Roses ka concert aaya, मैं भी guitar सीखता हूँ. Now you are competing against yourself when you learn how to play a guitar. Because every day you are competing to say, can I play this tune? And one day when you play the tune, that day your dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin will jump up. And guess what? Nobody else has given you a certificate. No one else has said, oh, you've become a guitar black belt.
You just know you're better than yesterday.
So that's also a form of resilience, no?
Absolutely.
Because you've created a vector in your life that no matter what happens in my office, I don't win my deal, I don't get my sales, or my boss gives me a very bullshit day or whatever, but I can play that tune, man. And I did it myself. I willed my hands and my fingers to take this piece of metal and wood and produce sound from it. And I learned to do it myself. So that's the way to create resilience. I think resilience is done by doing tiny. It's just like how do you develop your muscles? It's by push-up. Can you identify which push-up was it that it was a
series of push-ups,
series of progress. That's the way resilience also has to be built, with a series of valedictorian mesh or scaffolding rather than one ladder. ये ladder में अगर मैं ऊपर नहीं गया तो मैं fail हो गया. It should be a scaffolding that I've climbed somewhere here, I've reached somewhere there, I've got some interest in this area, I have some equity in this space, some people regard me to be a subject matter expert in this area. That's the way resilience is built.
So, Captain, you very correctly alluded to people being drawn into short-term firefighting measures. What would be the playbook and your advice for asking these leaders to then pivot to try and focus on long-term resilience?
I think deep down, intuitively, all of us know this. We all know that the real challenge of a human mind, human brain, always, is between two paradoxes. Always. वरना तो happiness है, nirvana हो जाएगा. है कि नहीं? The paradox is, in some areas of our life, we want absolute certainty. आप जब अपना गीजर का वो नॉब खोलोगे तो जब पानी आता है वो उतने गर्मी में आना चाहिए जिसमें रोज आता है. When you take the coffee and you put it in your mouth, the taste should be exactly the same as you have tasted every single day. When you put that toothpaste on that toothpaste taste.
Yeah.
But in many other areas, you want uncertainty. Picture ki ending cannot be same. IPL ka ending cannot be known. If you have seen the show earlier, you will not like it because you need uncertainty.
Correct.
Right?
That touch of unpredictability.
Unpredictability. Because unpredictability, uncertainty is what keeps the flavor of life. But certainty is what provides you with the foundation. Right?
Right.
The same paradox we have when we are dealing with short-term decisions and long-term decisions. Short-term decisions have certainty to it. If I give this much of money, I'll get this much of votes. If I do this much of this thing, I'll get this much of that. If I do chaplusi of my boss, I'll more likely get promoted.
Yeah.
If I don't take a stand against the big boss, or if I don't speak my mind in the boardroom, I'm more likely to get promoted.
Correct.
Right? This is a short term. Long term is, will I be okay with myself 10 years down the line by shutting my eyes when I knew something wrong was happening in front of me? Will I be okay when that lady came to me and asked me for help and I say, Bhaiya, I don't want to get in office politics, tum apna posh case khud dekho. Will I be okay with that 10 years down the line? So now it's again a trade-off between questions that I was answering for the short term and questions for the long term, right? So there are some guiding principles in it. Long term will always be harder. So if you have two options, they teach you this in the army, by the way. They teach you, if you ever get lost in the mountains and you come up to a point where there is one road going up and one road going down, or one road going straight, which one should you take if you're not certain of which is the right road to take? They always tell you to take the road which is going up. Why? Because if you make a mistake, you can easily rectify that mistake by rolling down.
Yeah.
No energy is lost. And you don't lose height. Once you have attained height, you should not lose it. So if you go down and you make a mistake, then you will have to climb up again from there, and you will require energy at that point of time. So literally they tell you to take the high road.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly that.
So the first lesson is that if you're finding something easy and finding something difficult, the rule of jurisprudence of life says the harder one is usually more likely to be the right one to take. The easier one is usually the more likely wrong one to take. Okay, so that's the first sort of a guiding post in terms of
right.
That also translates into your use of time. If your time, the way you're using it, is bringing you pleasure immediately, then much more likely that is going to be incorrect usage of time. If it is bringing hardship at that point of time, much more likely that it's going to serve you better in the long run. So a drag of a cigarette will give you a nice buzz, but 20 push-ups will give you a much worse feeling. But we both know which is going to be better 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
Right? So again, when you are leveraging your time, if the return is not pleasure, then more likely it is a good investment. If the return is pure pleasure, of course you may get into a zone while you are running a marathon and you may find pleasure there. But there is no person who gets into a zone on day one. Day 1 to day 50, 100, by the time you get to a zone, it will be hard days.
Yes.
And so if it is hard, it's more likely that you're doing the right thing. And the last advice which was given to me by a very great mentor of mine, who told me that if you're getting pushback in whatever you're trying to do, then most likely you're doing something new. He added, not necessarily right thing, but definitely new thing. So these are some of the signals which tell you that, am I on the right track or not? Am I working on investing in myself in terms of the hardship that I'm going through vis-a-vis the pleasure I can attain at the same time? Is the time that I'm spending, is it drudgery? Is it hard? So I look at it this way, that you could have a free period in school,
right,
when you would have horsed around the class or whatever, or you could have been studying calculus during a certain period. You haven't used calculus in your life ever, but the brain power that you required, the push-ups that you did, mental push-ups that you did to solve or try to solve calculus, is far more beneficial to you than the horsing around that you did during that one class.
Absolutely.
In the long run. So if you use that basic benchmark, I think दिल के अंदर वाले दिल में every person knows that this minute that I'm wasting or the minute I'm spending is either a waste or it's taking me towards my goal. Usually the challenge is, as they say in the Bible also, that the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. So the spirit knows that this is what I should be doing, but the flesh at that time say कल से करते हैं ना यार, कल से शुरू करते हैं, आज रहने दे, आज ऐसे कर लेते हैं, आज कर लेंगे, पता नहीं लगेगा बॉस को, सुल्लू गुल्लू, कौन पूछ रहा है, कौन देख रहा है, आज नहीं देख रहा है. And that usually, because कोई ना भी देख रहा हो, you are watching yourself and then you are setting standards for yourself.
Yes.
And once you set a mediocre standard and you're okay with it, then the next one is going to be more mediocre. Eventually, you will start justifying the mediocrity. क्या जरूरत है यार सब लोगों को करने की? Eventually, everyone cannot win. If some of us have to sit and clap while the others are marching by.
Yes.
So you will pretty much define the mediocrity you are living in and you will revel in that mediocrity and call that mediocrity a success.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you have to survive. So if you're surviving, you have to write a script which just justifies that the route I took was the best route. And ye sab bevkoof hai. All these guys who are working hard and all, they're all fools. And I'm the one who's the smartest of the lot. So it's the stories that we usually tell ourselves which define who we are. Absolutely. And if you are telling yourself a story that I can survive in resilience because I've got these 4-5 things going for me, you will survive. If you're telling yourself a story that for me, resilience is someone else holding me or someone else taking accountability. Oh, बड़ी कोविड आ गया, मैं क्या करता, मेरा नौकरी चला गया कोविड की वजह से, या डाउनटर्न आ गया ना, then that is also, in both cases, it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. Captain, was lovely chatting with you.
Same here.
Was lovely picking your brain. Look forward to future meetings.
Thanks, Shatan. Thank you, Karan.
My conversation with Captain Raghu Raman revealed a very, very important facet of the human personality. That leading is not about a title. It's about readiness, it's about responsibility, it's about resilience. And whether you're in the combat zone or the boardroom, it's equally true in both places. I hope my conversation with him today illuminated the way forward in a turbulent world for you as much as it did for me. Thank you for watching this episode of Baat Bharat Ki. I'll see you in the next one.